Alright guys, welcome to game number 1 in our second game here at the RSL Group D. Currently we have the first game, which is actually on one of the custom maps. Starting to the bottom right, we currently see Scarlett using a barcode ID here. And starting to the top left is her opponent. This is Polt. Remember, this is the first game that both of them play in this series, so we have now the winner going up against Symbol in the winners match, and then the loser of this game that we currently see here on screen is dropping down to the losers match, where he will face the Protoss player from China, Mexet. So let's see what the two can do here. This is one of the newer overlays that we have here. Blizzard has actually given us a lot of overlays to work with. It's very much appreciated. Later on in the games we will most likely use game hard maps once again. But yeah, as you can see, this is Blood Mist, one of the community maps. That is one of the cool things about the Rhythmix RSL that we have as the starting maps. One of those community maps that you don't see all the time, gives map makers a chance to just get their maps out there, and of course players also a chance to play on them, give a little bit of feedback, and just further helping the map making scene, which is always a good thing. Talking a little bit about the matchup at hand, we have now a Terran versus Zerg. Scarlett is going into a hatch first, which is what you always would make happen. So currently looking to the top left, we have the gas being taken for Polt. Polt is a huge fan of an early Reaper, and it's one of those builds where you can just say like, yep, I can see why. Early Reaper in the game, especially for a Terran, gives you so much information about what's going on. And there are so many builds these days where you are really in trouble if you don't scout what's going on. There are Zergling and Bailing aggression with 1-1 upgrades. Without it, you can go into a Roach push on 2 bases, on 1 base, on 3 base. You can go for the Roach drop on 3 bases. There is so much stuff that you can do. And Terran players in general just want to be greedy as fuck. Let's be honest about it, if you're a Terran player, you want to be a greedy as hell. That's why Terran players always go into the 3rd CC this early. And if you do that, you will die to a very aggressive build. But if you're a smart Terran player, then you will actually just get your unit out a little bit faster. We'll try to scout and we'll try to find out what's happening. And if you see, okay, there's the Roach Swarm, there's gas being taken, he's going into the attack, then you start building a few siege tanks, you're setting up your Marauder defense, you go into a couple of additional what do I want to say? Bunkers, thank you. And that is gonna help you quite a lot. So let's just see what he can do here. Scarlett currently defending against the Reaper quite well. If you're up against the Reaper, you know that you won't be able to keep up with his speed. So the one choice that you have is staying on creep, just making sure that you push it back a little bit up to the point where the Queen's out. Once the Queen's out, they can deal with the Reaper, they are real heroes. But Polt, of course, doesn't really do, he doesn't really want to do damage here. He wants to do damage if possible, but the more important part is just scouting what's going on, scouting what's happening. Polt now is also being scouted, and those 2 Zerglings did a little bit more than only scout what's happening. They also took down the command center on the low ground, or at least the SCV that was building it, and therefore they delayed it. That was quite well done, and oh, if he is able to get that Marine, that was of course be really annoying, and I think he just will. Wow, 5 hit points left, that was a close one. Yeah, Scarlett currently looking at the Reaper here. She knows exactly about the movements of the scouting unit for Polt. But let's see what exactly she is up her sleeves in this game. We have Polt now with a starport, and Polt, as you can see, did not go into a 3rd command center right away. He chose to go into additional tech, and therefore he will be able to drop Hellions in Scarlett's base if he wants to. We have Scarlett with a build that is getting gas, but she's already on 3 queens too, trying to get that creep spread going, I guess. Extra gas being taken here, and in the harvester count we have a lead for her with 30 to 24. Important to note is that even though she spread the first 2 overlords quite well, she doesn't really know about the edges of the map, so it's not in a position where she will be ready to deal with any kind of Hellion drops. But Polt is actually doing something that I haven't... Well, no, he's not going for that. Polt okay, the one reason why I hesitated there for a second is that Polt for a long time had a push that was very, very dangerous with Marauder and Hellion. And when I saw that on production tab, I really thought for a second, okay, he might do this, but he doesn't have the structures that he needs for it. He just gets the Marauders in case one of those roach timings actually hits him. So that's his thought process here. The third base on this map is quite far away from the natural, so Polt is trying to use that to his advantage to go in and do some damage on the hatch before it's actually up. Trying to make this happen. 1-1 is now also on its way, and we have the Roach one. This is most likely going to be one of these timings on 3 bases that I was talking about earlier. You get the third base, but you don't really saturate it against the 1-1, and usually you would also get the lair tech and start to go into the Roach speed, which is something that Scarlett isn't really doing. She has also to deal with the Viking right now. The Overlord for number 1 is already down. And here we go now, the Hellions trying of course to sneak by. That's the reason why she's a bit reluctant to move in here with those queens, because she doesn't want to allow a run by. But here is the lair tech. So she could go into these timings, but the +1/+1 line's not really up as it usually should. She could go into a +2/+2 timing, but at this point really with the third base it's a little bit tricky for her. Polt is supply blocked for a few seconds here, but he did a lot of damage to this hatch. The Hellions are not very likely to kill it, but they do damage now to the lava and take them out. That lowers the production abilities of Scarlett. And now finally with the speed upgrade, there is an attempt to surround those Hellions, but not as successful as she hoped for. The third base for Polt now going down, and so far the Terran player really doing a decent job here. He's now at 40 harvests against 46. The third command center is a little bit later than he would love to, but he is also in map control. He has that aggression, and he is getting that hatch dangerously low. She needs a transfuse, and she has the energy. It finally drops it, but that was scary for a second. I really thought that Polt might be able to do a lot more. And the main issue for Scarlett really is that if you look at the hatch, there's always the chance for Polt to just drop a couple of Marauders close by and just take it out. So Scarlett has to be really careful here. This is really dangerous. Oh, but a good surround here on a few of the Hellions, taking those guys down. And now Scarlett moving out. 1-1 is done. We have the +1 attack upgrade not just done yet. This one Viking, just only with 1 kill so far, not really doing as much as could have. Widowmine here being placed down. Where's the Overseer? Don't have one just yet. And she is actually going to lose a couple of units here. Oh, no, Overseer comes in just before the cooldown is ready. So, Polt is behind in upgrades. That's one of the advantages that Scarlett has. 1-1 is done for Scarlett, and 1-1 is just now started for Polt. Also the combat shield. Stim, of course, already being done. Let me just confirm that. Oh, no, actually. Yeah, Stim is done, okay. So, right now, we have the third base. He's trying to establish himself that third. The problem for Polt really being that he is so far behind in overall supply. Scarlett with a defense against the early aggression of Polt has really done a great job. And I'm actually afraid a little bit of Polt. He doesn't have siege tank. That minefield is very dangerous. But the third base for him is very difficult to take. Here come now those Lings and the Roaches, and Scarlett with the aggression here. She's still on 3 bases, moving in. The minefield proves to be quite dangerous, but with the scouting through the Overseers, he has... yeah, Polt has enough thanks to his Marauders, but only for a second as those Roach reinforcements stream in. And now suddenly Polt is actually in a lot of trouble here. He's losing Harvesters, and keeping the Harvester count low is exactly what Scarlett wants here. A great surround though, and that will at least ensure that all the Roaches will be toast. But the Roaches, at what cost? 18 workers already being killed here. And Polt is forced to drop the Mule Hammer here, whereas Scarlett just adds additional attack, goes now into the Infestation Pit. We have her immediately with a +2 attack upgrade. The third is also very much exposed here. We have the worker count for Polt plummeting down to 39 against 56. Scarlett in total control of the game now. She can't win it right now and immediately take him out, but the creep spread is also getting really good for her. He's spreading it forward, getting now the +2/+2. The fourth base is on the way. The third for a long time being denied here. Polt with problems going into the armory, and that's of course also one of the things that you don't want to happen. If you go into 1-1 with a double engineering bay, you don't want to forget about the armory. Technically, he didn't really forget about it. He was just under so much pressure that he couldn't focus on it. But that is a mistake that Scarlett forced. And with that one move, it's just, yeah, it just gives her such an edge. The +2/+2 will nearly be completed before Polt even starts his own set, as you can see. But now this exposed third base, I talked about it earlier. Here comes that push that I was mentioning. It is low in hit points, and Polt moves in, bam, snipes it, and immediately has the ability to back out now with those medivacs. We don't have anti-air just yet for Scarlett, and that is what is Polt's major advantage here. And Polt is actually bouncing back in this game. This is one of those things that Polt was always able to do. I remember games on Antigua Shipyard against Lucera, where Lucera had the entire map covered in creep. He had 5 bases against 3, and Polt at some point was just like, yep, I'm ready, my upgrades are done, I can move out, and I'm gonna punish you, and I'm gonna punish you hard. So Scarlett might find herself in the same situation, especially since Polt is now actually taking a supply lead. Scarlett, of course, getting the better end here with attack, going into Hive already and adding also the Spire, can go into Broodlords later on. So these are all things that are working quite well for Scarlett, but she has to make that happen. She has to capitalize on the attack advantage that she has. And the +3 attack upgrade for the ranged units is one of those things that she's trying to make that work. She is already in the lead in the upgrades, and keep in mind, Polt might be ahead in supply, but this is definitely a difficult situation for him to be in, since one wrong move can cost him the game. But with drop play and with using this mobility that Terran has these days, he can actually do a lot here. The 4th at the bottom is mining for Scarlett, but she is just now rebuilding the base that was sniped earlier. And Polt has a lot of momentum going if he's able to get that drop into a good position, and that's exactly what he's trying. But Scarlett has already spotted it. There are now spine crawlers and also spores being built. Really good funnels for Scarlett. Exactly what she needed. But all the forces were drawn to the right side of the map, and Polt is trying to utilize this. He is a very positional player, and he's showing it. Moving into the 4th base, immediately the drones being pulled. Scarlett ready now with the infestors though. Great split for Polt, a lot of pressure here by the Korean player. Scarlett doing what she can, going for the roaches. The infestors here still on the move. We have a couple of additional corruptors that can deal with the medivacs. The Greater Spire is not done just yet, so she doesn't morph them into the Broodlords just yet. But nice job by Scarlett. Really good cleaning that up. Already has the bank working for her. Important if you want to transition into the Broodlords later on. Let's have a quick look now to Polt's side of the map. 3 bases for him still. No 4th command center. In the main base, the 2-2 is done. Not going into the 3-3 just yet. Polt is going to fall behind upgrades once again. Once that +3 attack upgrade is completed. But Scarlett is at this point not getting the armor upgrade, and Polt is now on double upgrades on the engineering bay. So that advantage that Scarlett had earlier is now gone a little bit in upgrades, but she is still ahead in the tech. The Broodlords are now being morphed, and as soon as 3-3 is done, or as long as 3-3 is not done, let's put it like this, it's gonna be a decent position for Scarlett. But now with the siege tank in the back, Polt with a really good composition here. The Marauders at the front tanking damage, doing extra damage against those roaches, and the siege tank behind it is actually protected by those additional Widow Mines that we have. Now it's Broodlord time on the other hand, and guess what Polt doesn't have? Yeah, Vikings. He's now building 2 of them, but losing the siege tank and also the Widow Mines. A really back and forth game. I really like this match so far. Both players doing what they can to get the edge in the game, and this is just really straight up fighting. One opponent, well, it's just fight after fight. Scarlett going for the aggression, Polt going for the snipe. Early on, of course, then later on the drops. Here we have another double drop once more at this base, and Scarlett can't really do anything about it. Their entire force at the left side of the map and the choke point. Ah, the Broodlord's a little bit exposed, but also Polt has to be careful. Catching a fungal every now and then, but these units to the right side, they will most likely snipe another base. Scarlett trying to exchange blows, going into another fight against the 3rd here, but Polt is losing his anti-air. The Vikings are moving in, and the Corruptors did a lot of damage already. Now the Broodlord's a little bit exposed. The Broodlord count is only at well, is only at 3 at this point, so it's not like she's overly committing to this. It's just an additional threat to Polt's bases, and with the third now gone, Polt is suddenly in a lot of trouble here. His bases in the main are nearly mined out, and his drop play is doing damage, but is it doing enough? We have the 4th exterminated by Polt. He's basically just calling, I don't know, at this point, being 40 supply behind, he has the resource. I mean, 1,000 minerals and 1,000 gas. Polt needs those production cycles going. But at the bottom left, he also spots this base, and the Marauder is able to force a cancel here. So Polt is in a very dire situation. The only mineral patches left here in the natural, in the main base, it doesn't look much better. But still, he has resource and he's going into 3-3. So if he can hit those production cycles, maybe he can somehow make it happen, especially since now his Viking count is much increased. But the Corruptor is also there for Scarlett. It is going to be so difficult for the Korean player here. Terran player currently living in Texas. He is in a very, very dire situation. He has a good defense set up, but the numbers are in favor of Scarlett, and Scarlett has also a very good composition. He is trying to make that happen. Polt is moving in, sniping one Broodlord at a time. Scarlett decides to commit. She moves into the position of Polt, trying to get those siege tanks out of the way. Where are the corruptions? Where are the fungals? There they hit. And they are decent, but oh my god, Scarlett lost 100 supply already. She lost 100 supply here. Polt is trying to make that trade work, and Scarlett is falling behind. Such a great position for the defense of Polt. The choke point is the noose that currently is tied around Scarlett's neck, and it looks like it might strangle her. The base at the bottom left is not gonna play a role in this game, at least not for now, and Polt is moving in with what he has, sniping this base over there. What a defense! Scarlett going into the choke point, and it is Polt who comes out ahead, takes that significant lead now. He needs, of course, still to get himself this 3rd base. He hasn't won the game just yet. Scarlett was mining until a few seconds ago, and now she's in control of another base over here. Polt at least spotted the base at the bottom left with a marine, but another one is now being built to the right side of the map. The army supply at this point are heavily in favor of Polt, and this is the one advantage that he has, but time is working in Scarlett's favor. She is still mining, and Polt, yeah, well, he's starting to mine again. He needs to call down the mules here. Both of them in a decent position. Harvest account is in Scarlett's favor though. If she can complete the base to the right side of the map, maybe she's able to bounce back. Another problem here is though that Polt is also in a heavy lead regarding the upgrades, and Polt spotted the base. Polt is everywhere with his marines. He sees everything that is going on, and that is something that is really going to work quite well for him. So right now, Scarlett is falling farther and farther behind the game, and this is really what entertains me so much in this first game of the series, that both players are just always they're always at each other's throat, going for blow after blow and just never stopping to fight. Polt was in such a bad spot, but he made it happen. He set up the defense at the 3rd. Scarlett knew she had to attack. She moved in. She had a good composition. She had the numbers, but the position for Polt was so much better, and he capitalized on it. He came back into the game, and Scarlett is now trying to make this happen with her funnels moving in, but she doesn't have the number in the corrupt account. The Vikings doing so much. On the ground, on the other hand, the Roach is doing so much damage, but now lured into the range of the siege tank, and that alone is a big plus for Polt. Polt with a lead in supply doesn't even have to use his Vikings in assault mode here. He can use them to gain the high ground vision and to deal with overlords, overseers, with corruptors and broodlords. A very good position. Bottom left and to the right side of the map, the bases, yes, they are ready, but she can't use them. Scarlett can simply not use these bases, and that is what makes her struggle. She's also completely relying on these roach compositions that we was using earlier. And with her being up against 3 Marauders and Marines, that is not going to work too well for her. So Roach is amazing at the beginning, but then later on in the game they really kind of lose their value and their place in the army composition for a Zerg player. And that is what she has to realize. The problem really that Polt is, he might as well also get a couple of additional siege tanks out there. I think he has still a few guarding his bases, actually not really at this point, but now another one being set up. So Polt not neglecting his macro here. A slight oversight with those Vikings, but still there is not enough energy for a chain fungal. The base has been taken out here by the 1-2 Marines that we saw, with another push coming over. And Scarlett, it's just the unit composition for her that doesn't work anymore. What was once one of her biggest advantages in this game is now working at a disadvantage. The roaches are just in a position where they are not going to cut it anymore. Not against what is being used here by Polt. Here comes the battle. Polt cutting off the path of retreat for Scarlett. The Vikings in the assault mode, and Scarlett, she just can't trade cost efficiently here, being on only 2 mining bases now. Same is true for Polt, like when it comes to the bases, but it's just like the resources that we see for Polt are just better used. Let me put this in other terms. We have so many Vikings right now for Polt, and he's getting additional ones, and Scarlett cannot kill the Vikings. And this is the big problem for her. Killing Marines doesn't do shit in this game. Marines are a dime a dozen at this point. Polt doesn't really care about minerals. Getting those Marines out, he doesn't care about it. What Scarlett has to kill are the gas heavy units, and Polt already has a gas bank that he could use if that actually happens. So Marines, just those production cycles that he's hitting. Oh well, that does not mean that you can clump up them up like this, Polt. That could actually cost you the game. Oh my god! Scarlett with a money fungal. Twice in a row, and now we are suddenly looking at a very different game. I cannot believe that happened. Oh, if he fungals those medivacs! Oh my god. Polt, what did you just do? Such great micro the entire game, and now suddenly with such a mistake. That is a completely different ballgame right now. Oh my god. I cannot believe that happened. I cannot believe that just happened. Polt with a huge mistake, and Scarlett on 2 mining bases, and the one at the bottom left still alive, if not really all too useful just yet. That is to say, that drop being taken out. Oh la la, Scarlett suddenly in a position where she can not only come back into the game but actually win it. I cannot believe that that happened. I cannot believe that he didn't split his units. The entire game he split his units all the time, but then he runs into such a massive fungal 3 times in a row. There was like, ooh, Polt! Now he has the split. Where are those siege tanks? Why didn't he get more siege tanks? He did it the entire course of the game, and they were so valuable for him. Now he's building them again, but the fan, the shit already hit the fan. The base is down, okay, but he cannot mine from that base anymore. Well, that was a failed fungal, but well. Now moving in, but the siege tank is there. Polt is playing it safe again, but Scarlett with the lead in supply. And that lead in supply should give her the safety to transition out of this to get additional high-tech units out of there and additional bases and actually guard them. That should give her the safety that she needs. She doesn't need to finish it now. She can try, but against the siege tanks, I would be a little bit worried. She just wants to deny mining at this 3rd base. Does she have the defense over to take down that drop? Well, I guess she has, with all those roaches that are just waiting for that to happen. And here we go, once again, going into the corrupt as an additional infestors. Now that she realized that she can make that work. Here comes the repair on the orbital command. A lot of infested swarmings are being used, and Polt has to evacuate. The roaches are being eliminated though at the bottom left, and Scarlett would be well advised to send a few units over to take down these units. She can't lose that 3rd base. Well, I guess she can, but it would be a very bad choice. Here we go. Drones coming in. Drones to the rescue. And the fungal? Not just yet. Ah, gets the fungal. That was important. Needs another one though. Ooh! Yeah, well, the drop is at least going to be cleaned up. So, yeah, that's going to work. But okay, let's look at this game right now. We have so many comebacks in this game that is kind of incredible. But at this point... Well, Scarlett, right. Okay. Alright. No panic. At this point, Scarlett has a 30 supply lead. She has map control with the units that she is currently commanding. Huge lead in army supply. Can now get another base, which she is doing, and can transition out of it. Polt, with finally the siege tank numbers that he had, which he was neglecting a little bit earlier, has now a very good position against this. Okay, the siege tanks counter those roaches and infestors very well. What they are gonna struggle against are the broodlords that are coming into play, but this is why Polt is now getting the Viking count up again. And with only 1 corruptor, The Vikings, if split well, should be able to take care of the Brood Lords. Scarlett is trying to work against this with Fungals and Infested Terrans. So Polt once more with a really good defense, and this will allow him to get control of this base once again. And his run-by is at the bottom of the map. Polt is just a player who always knows how to use his units. He is always, when he's in a bad spot, looking at the game and he's being like, okay, well, what can I do here to get back into business? What can I do? Use my Vikings to be mobile, to just draw her forces out, to thin them out, to make damage, to do something, and that's exactly what he did. Here come those Vikings, and with a pretty decent split, getting one Viking for Fungal and those additional Infested Terrans, not really the trade you want to go for. But can Scarlett get into this position? She still has a 30 supply lead. She's mining from 2 bases. Polt is nearly mined out at his base in the middle, in the center. But we have him still. Oh, he loses the command center! Ah, Polt without the repair here. And now suddenly things are once again looking very bad for him. It just looked for a sec like he was able to stabilize again. That's his big goal here, but the infestor count for Scarlett is now so high. And ooh, with a one Fungal in there, and Polt is dead in the waters. But we have the double drop in the main base, and let's see if Polt realizes that he has the drop here. Scarlett realized that it's there a little bit faster than Polt saw that he could do damage with it, and therefore Polt and Scarlett here really fighting like lions. This is a crazy game. I love this match. A little bit interesting to see it on this map. This gives, of course, spices things up a little bit. But at this point, Polt really doing so much, trying to come back into this game. But Scarlett, she has the superior composition. But it's just this mobility that Polt is using with his drops that really makes her struggle. Nice Fungals here, getting a good amount of Fungals out there. But we have more or less a Wings of Liberty-esque game going on in this match. A lot of Fungals, the Brood Lords as well, another base at the top right now. The drop once again in the main base. The Roaches are struggling, still no third armor upgrade for Scarlett. Antia is a little bit low. The last few mineral patches for the Terran player. Polt trying to go for it. Polt trying to push forward. But his drop is gonna being cleaned out at some point, and that's gonna happen right now, and then he's gonna lose that additional piece on the chessboard. Whereas Scarlett is now moving in a few of her units, but Polt is still defending quite well. Problem really being that 2 Brood Lords are soon gonna be joined by a lot more. A third one coming in, and Polt is running out of time. He is the one being on a clock here, not the other way around. The Medivac is being sniped. We have the base to the top right. Scarlett also mining from the base over here. She has still a really good economy going, as you can see. 900 minerals per minute, also the gas. Polt doesn't have that. And the army supply right now are already in Scarlett's favor, and that is only going to change even more in her favor over time. Polt realizing it, stemming in. Nice snipe here on the Brood Lord. Is he able to get more than that? The Fungal is doing a decent amount of damage, and those Roaches immediately closing the distance, trying to take them out. Another cancel here on the morphing Brood Lord. Scarlett realizing she has to be careful, but with a 50 supply lead, she can be a little bit more straightforward here. Polt is slowly leapfrogging forward, but it doesn't really look good. Now the Corruptors are moving in, but there were just way too many Marines. Immediately the split for Polt. His micro coming through here. It's really shining. He messed up earlier, but now he is hitting those Marines and he's splitting them well. It's like playing Command and Conquer and hitting the X button all the time. The Vikings are being killed now. Polt is dropping in supply, so is Scarlett, but she is still mining. The base is still going stronger with the Brood Lords defended by the Infestors, assisted by the Fungals and the Roaches moving in. It looks like Scarlett has finally done it after about 5 or 6 comebacks in this game, either player gaining an advantage over time. It looks like it will be game Scarlett about to clench things out here to take game number 1 in this best of 3 at the Rhythmix RSL. Things are looking pretty good for the Canadian Zerg. She has done it. She's definitely done it. This is not an army that you beat anymore with just a few tanks and Marines. And Polt knows it as well. If he doesn't want to go into the losers match against Mexet, he has to win 2 games in a row now. Scarlett with a good performance here. GG. Polt leaves the game and Scarlett takes the lead in the series.